first of all, I want to thank both of you guys for hopping on tonight. I know we got mom duty. You're talking to Border Patrol agents, Anthony.
Yeah.
The perfect intro. It's amazing.
Yeah,
but we've been doing this now for 2 months. We've been doing this Monday. Well, we started Sunday through Thursday, and then 5 nights a week was just a little too much. So we do it Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. every single night. We just released a schedule. So if you guys want to check my Instagram, you can see who's on for the rest of the week. We have an awesome lineup this entire week. But I want to get into it. And first, I would love for both of you guys, if you guys can, because you guys have never been on before, I would love for you guys both to give a 30-second intro or 1 minute, whatever. Tell me like what you guys are focusing on, what type of work you're doing, and who you are real quick. Anthony, we'll start with you, and then we'll go with Deborah.
Okay. I'm such a classic gentleman. I'm sorry, but Deborah, you got to go first. Ladies
All right,
first.
Deborah, I'm sorry. Yeah, ladies first. Oh,
No, you're good.
You're
good.
Bad.
You're good. No.
I
I'm
always
sorry,
go
man.
right to left on my screen, so I just
You're
go
good.
this
No,
way.
yeah. Miss Deborah, go ahead.
Deborah, go ahead. I'm a jerk.
I love it. My respect for you just went from like not knowing you at all to up here.
And the respect for me just went down.
No, bro, we love you. We love you, man. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Deborah.
No, not at all. No, but that's great. That's great. I appreciate it. Really quickly, I will just tell you a little bit about myself. My history is preventative health and wellness. So that's the field that I come from, and the experience and the perspective that I come from is my love and my passion for health and wellness in general, and just helping people in general to improve their quality of life through really simple, easy things that we can all be doing and just making changes in our lives when it comes to habits and behaviors. So I help people to do that. What we've been doing here in the Tampa area, or Pinellas County specifically, with the school board has been next month, actually. My gosh, it's already May, at the end of May. My gosh, this year is flying.
It goes.
But last June, myself and 2 other moms in the area actually started a group called Parent Advocates for Student Health Freedom. This is the group where we have just brought all of these people together and connected people in our community, mostly parents and patriots that are fighting for our children against a really corrupt school system right now.
Amazing. Yeah, the work you're doing, I've been watching for. I'm like, she is doing. Do you know Samita Armstrong?
Yes.
So,
we actually spoke on the phone a few weeks ago. She wanted to call and really find out about how we got started and what we've been doing. And I filled her in, kind of gave her some ammo to move forward with the things that they've been doing out there. So yeah.
Yeah. No, me and her are really good friends, and we talked this morning, and she was on Warm this morning to talk about the school boards. And when this morning we were talking, and she's like, we had our school board, 85 parents showed up, where she was the first one protesting a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
Now there's 85. And that's what I
Nice.
love about this, is that people are getting involved, they're getting engaged, and they're learning how to keep the school board and these, really what it is teacher unions, accountable. All right, The gentleman, the second.
Sorry. I'm so sorry, man. I did not mean
good.
To anything.
This is a good check. I'm gonna remember for every night now. I'm gonna go straight to the girl.
That's good, man. No, yeah, man. Hey, honestly, thank you for having me here, man. And Deborah, kudos to you for everything you're doing out there. So I'm actually in the belly of the beast, frontline conservative, Los Angeles, California, born and raised. My history was graduated, single parent home. My mother's an immigrant from Mexico. Lived that life, grew up around gangs. I was supposed to be, a statistic of just kind of joining a gang myself and just being like that typical Latino. But I fought against that. I'm like, I cannot fall into that statistic. And so when I graduated high school, 9/11 had just happened, and I knew that I wanted to serve my country. My father was Army, my grandfather was Army, and so on my dad's side, I'm like 4th generation American, and I just knew that I wanted to serve my country. And so I did over a decade with the U.S. Coast Guard, and the reason I wanted to do that was because, Coast Guard, front lines of our Homeland Security, and I was actually a Spanish interpreter at the border for a couple years myself, in San Diego and Tijuana. We patrolled those borders out there, and so I was kind of able to to see firsthand what was really happening at the border. And I think that that is kind of like what kept me awake to the politics of things, where people were trying to build this narrative about, protecting the borders is racist, and if you're a border patrol agent, you're a racist, or if you work for Department of Homeland Security, you're a racist, et cetera, et cetera. Being able to see firsthand the kids being trafficked, the humans being trafficked, the amount of drugs that were coming in, I just kind of became like a huge advocate for human trafficking. And so I just always wanted to have a voice in that realm. Like, even after I left the military, I was just like, I cannot forget these people. I cannot forget the people that are suffering at the border. And so, in comes Donald Trump, and, he was all about border security and protecting people and combating the human trafficking and the drug trafficking that was happening. First president ever to be endorsed by the Border Patrol Union, doing the primaries. So that was massive. And so I just didn't understand why a lot of Latinos and Hispanics weren't endorsing this candidate more, who was promising to combat the human trafficking. Yeah. These people that claim that they care about our people and people that are coming through. But I'm just like, man, if only people understood that illegal immigration is modern day slavery. I have undocumented people in my family, and I see the way they live and what they are allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. And it's like they live scared, sheltered lives, man, and they can never get ahead in life. And I'm like, that's no way to live a life, And so that's kind of how I built my platform, is kind of debunking all these myths that the building a border is racist, and that combating human trafficking is just racist against brown people and blah, blah. And I'm just like, dude, you have no idea what you're talking about. I've seen things that would literally keep you up at night. Here I am. I refuse to leave Los Angeles. I could move to Florida. Florida sounds so great right now. I
know.
envy the Florida guys.
I lived in LA for almost 8 years. I lived in Los Angeles. I lived in North Hollywood for 3 years, and then I moved to Orange County, and then I just made the move a couple months ago. When they closed down the gyms, the golf courses, all the trails, the hiking, the beaches, I was like, and then you had to stay at home. I mean, after 9 months, you're depressed. You are depressed, and I'm like,
it was hard, man. It was hard, especially with 3 kids myself. It was really hard to kind of keep them happy. It was like you can only beat your kids at Monopoly so many times before they've had it with you. But aside from that, I also do a Spanish podcast. It's a conservative Spanish podcast. I that's another thing that I'm a huge advocate for, is we need Spanish conservative news. And so I reached out to many organizations, and we're trying to work some stuff out, but I was just like, I need to take the initiative. And so I have my own YouTube channel. I do Spanish podcasting Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it's just like really informing the Spanish speaking community of what's really going on.
What we're seeing at the border and the division that they've done, especially when it comes to how the left, loves to use and abuse the oppression, as they say, of minorities and Latinos in the Black community. And now it's Asian hate. Whatever they want to come up with. It really is this Marxist ideology of this is how they do it. They're pulling from the ideology of Marxism. And we see today that we had a space commander. And Anthony, you posted something today. You posted the New York Post, which has said space commander removed after saying Marxism is infiltrating the military. And you said, this is a reminder, FBI is promoting communists, and now the military is removing Marxist officers. This is a reminder that Christianity is on a decline. What did you mean by that? I mean, today was scary. Today was the first time. Yeah. I mean, we started to see how the military has become politicized, but now we're like literally seeing actual commanders in the military lose their jobs because they're speaking out against communism. Mm-hmm. What did you mean by that? And I mean, how do you think this is affecting America as a whole?
Well, so I won't delve too much into like the World War II stuff, but you can find articles anywhere that, of course, the U.S. had to ally themselves with Soviet Russia, basically the USSR, which are communists, to kind of defeat Nazi Germany and such. But if you take a look at what happened after World War II, you're able to see that communism has slowly just kind of won and taken over all these provinces that the UN or, after the US stepped out, that there was really no centralized help. There was no kind of union. There was really just kind of like free for all. And then that's when, the communism just started infiltrating everywhere. But kind of fast forward a bit to today, if you look at at what all these platforms are, so you got the technocrats, you got the people controlling social media, you have academia, you have mainstream media. It's basically all controlled by either communists or socialists or representatives that want to say they're progressive, but they're really just pushing either socialist or communist ideology. I found so many pages on Twitter or on Facebook that openly say that they're anti-capitalist, and then you go to see who's following them, and it's like the squad. You know, Ilhan
Wow.
Omar.
Yep.
You got
100.
AOC, stuff like that. So the thing is, you know, somebody put out a tweet today. I believe his name is Jesse Kelly. He's a political commentator, and he posted, it's nice to see that more and more people are waking up to what's being promoted everywhere, and that's communism. It's like that. This gives me hope that we might win. And I kind of replied to that is like, don't you feel like the reason why they're so bold and outspoken, the reason why they're making commercials with people with the closed communist fist, is because they've infiltrated, and now they have a solid foundation of communism in all these institutions. I mean, Deborah, you're talking about fighting back against the schools in Los Angeles. The union teacher of Los Angeles, the leader, she's a Black Lives Matter activist, Cecily Meyer Cruz. Before she became the president, she was openly advocating anti-capitalism, Marxism, communism. She spoke at the Democratic Socialists of America. She was one of the keynote speakers, I believe, back in like 2018, 2017. So you look at these institutions, and they've been infiltrated. And then there's actually a really good book, too, that even talks about how the church was infiltrated. There's a famous communist defector. Her name is Dr. Bella Todd. Back in the 50s, she talks about how herself, being part of the Communist Party of USA, CPUSA, she installed over 1,000 communist agents into high-ranking places in the Catholic Church. Why? Wow. Because the church was the most effective against communism. So communists started understanding that instead of fighting capitalists, instead of fighting the West with their hands and with guns, they could just infiltrate everything. So they've infiltrated academia. And the thing is, it's not just limited to liberal cities. Look at the things that you're learning. Critical race theory is having to be combated in every single state. Why? Because it's been federalized. Right. You know, the nation controls it. So you have, you know, these institutions. Again, you're talking about academia. So you're talking about the people, Jack Dorsey. I mean, Jack Dorsey's ex-vice CEO, so like his right-hand man, tweets were found of him saying that he would be happy to record capitalists being shot. You know, like, oh, I would be really happy. I would be there recording, watching these capitalist pigs being shot.
Well,
and
this
was Jack Dorsey's right-hand man.
Better yet, we had a CNN contributor yesterday or 2 days ago tweet, "The world needs a Hitler right now." Like these and this is a CNN contributor that writes articles now. CNN surprisingly fired him. And we've seen this throughout over the last couple of months. I don't know if you remember that Veritas leak where I don't know who it was. It was someone, it was a mainstream supervisor. I don't know if it was CNN or MSNBC, where, you know, Veritas had an undercover journalist, and they were talking about how a lot of the MAGA Trump supporters, we're going to have to put them in re-education camps. And he didn't know he was being recorded, but this is what the elites and the left, like what they really believe. They don't tweet it, but imagine what we could actually see and know if we really knew what their plans are, you know, behind the scenes. And like you said, with critical race theory, you know, there's a book called Love Letter to America, I believe it's called. It's written by a KGB agent from back in the Soviet Union. And what he's talking about is everything you're talking about right now, Anthony. He calls it ideological subversion, and how they know that they can't beat the states militarily or through war, but the way that you destroy a country is you take them in the mind. And you now look at our schools, you look at our universities. I mean, obviously the race issue, anti-Semitism. We are now so divided, and now, you know, health, when it comes to COVID and vaccines, they have literally figured out a way to literally divide this country. The propaganda is so bad that, you know, the families are being split apart. Best friends are not friends anymore. America is literally being destroyed through this. It's people like both of you and all of us, what we're doing tonight, that kind of helps people become aware of, hey, don't become a pawn in this entire big game. And, you know, today, I think something else you tweeted, Anthony, families can expect to get monthly checks, $250 for 6 to 7. They're basically trying, and we saw this with COVID, the unemployment checks. You know, that's why a lot of these states right now, they can't find job. There are so many job openings, but people don't want to take jobs because for a year now, they're just used to getting free money. Right. And you're just starting to see, like, again, Bannon always says there's no conspiracies, but there's no coincidences. And I mean, we're just seeing this global move, and, you know, it's being used through globalism and through Deborah, do you have any thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, it just brings up, I just pulled up something from Martin Luther King Jr. from back in 1947. It's a quote something that he wrote back when he was at Morehouse College. It's the purpose of education. it talks about specifically what we're discussing here with utilizing, education, which is really indoctrination to, instill all of these ideas. And it's the function of education, therefore, is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. But education which stops with efficiency may prove the greatest menace to society. The most dangerous criminal may be the man gifted with reason, but no moral.
Wow.
We must remember that intelligence is not enough. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. But it really just gives a good snapshot, back all the way back then, of what was going to happen. And if we are not careful, our colleges will produce a group of closed-minded, unscientific, illogical propagandists consumed with immoral acts. Be careful, brethren. Be careful, teachers.
That is today. You're a parent. Both you guys are parents. Are your guys the shools for your children that when they're teaching, are they teaching critical race theory in their schools? And have you kind of had that discussion with the school boards when you've been showing up?
So I can talk about this a little bit. My story with my kids is a little bit different because my kids are not in public school anymore, because I do not trust the school system anymore to raise, be basically raising my kids. Because what you have to look at when your kids are in school, right? They're there 5 days a week, 7, 8 hours a day. And so for the most part, these schools have a greater influence on the children than the parents do, because then the parents get the kids from school, they take them home, dinner, bedtime, you might be with them a few hours. I know parents that, put their kids to bed at like 8 o'clock. You might have an hour or two with your kids. What kind of impact do you think that you have on your kids with an hour or 2 hours a day when they're at school being pumped full of propaganda all day long? So I pulled my kids out. Yeah, I pulled my kids out. I realized this stuff last year because mine are little. My daughter just went into kindergarten and my son's second grade. And thank God, honestly, thank God that in a way, all of these things over the last year have been revealed to me so that I can do something about it now, here and now. And I did take my kids out of the system. And I remember having a discussion with my kids were in a charter school, which is still public run. It's still public run. So I remember having a really long discussion with the principal of our school, and we were starting to fight this. We created that group. We started getting lots and lots and lots of traction. And I remember having a 2-hour-long conversation with the principal of my kid's school and, just grilling her. And she was 100% like on our side of things with the values personally, but she was just, my hands are tied. This is my job and I have to do my job now. And it's like, for me, I don't operate that way. I'm not the type of person who can have my values and then go to work and do something different and just separate. It's like compartmentalizing. I don't live that way. I can't live that way. I have to live authentically through and through. So for me, I would be the one that would like leave the job, quit the job because it didn't line up anymore and it didn't align. I had this conversation with her, and then, at that point I wasn't sure what was going to happen. She wasn't sure what was going to happen with the masks and the social distancing and all of the guidelines that they were trying to put into place last year with the CDC releasing that, which, by the way, I have to point out that this to parents, because I didn't know, and I'm sure a lot of you didn't know this, but the CDC guidelines that they released for children to return to school, that was specifically given to them by the teachers union, which I had no idea how deep any of this stuff went a year ago. I knew about health and wellness and the corruption with the medical and the pharmaceutical industry, but I didn't even know 90% of the stuff that I know now because I'm deep in it all the time with the education system.
That explains everything. And I think the scariest thing more than anything when it comes to this entire, especially like the fact that the CDC makes a statement and now like all big corporations and everything is now going back to normal. This might be the conspiracy in me. I believe this was just a complete test run. And I think a lot of people believe that. But it's scary to the fact that they have so much power that they control, because they could say 2 weeks from now, there's a rise in cases, we need to shut everything down. Then corporations are just going to bow down and take it. And that's the scary thing. What have you been doing? Because you've been doing a lot of work with the school board. What's the response? Are the parents like angry? When was the last time you had a meeting?
So we actually were there last Tuesday, last week, and we had a huge turnouts, a huge day. It was over 100 parents inside to speak, and we had over 100 outside to rally and support as well, because we have a lot of people that just come and they're not necessarily parents in the district, but they're there to support. And then we have parents that are maybe there for the first time and they're nervous and they don't, want to go and speak because they're just not there yet. And believe it or not, it's like I try to inspire the parents to use their voices to advocate for the children, because the children don't really have the voices right now to speak up and say this is what's going on. But believe it or not, I mean, a lot of the parents don't even know their own power and know how to use their own voice, So
100.
this is where it starts, because we as parents, our job as parents is to lead our children by example. We can't take on the do as I say, not as I do mentality. We can't do that with our kids. Especially when it comes to health. And this is what I've taught for a really, really long time, for, over 10 years, preventative health, healthy habits. Parents have to lead their children. If parents were leading their children in health and wellness and taking care of themselves, we wouldn't be in a health crisis.
Exactly.
And I will say, this is the thing. My idea of what's going on with the health crisis is a lot different than, what the mainstream media's idea of the health is. And the health crisis that I believe that's going on is the health crisis that we're not taking personal responsibility or accountability.
100%.
And we are blaming, and we are victims, and we are neglecting ourselves and neglecting our health and well-being on a daily basis because we don't want to take responsibility and we don't teach our kids. So if we can't do it, then we can't teach our kids. How will our kids ever know? How will they grow up into healthy, strong, responsible adults? They won't, because the schools aren't teaching them that. And if the schools aren't and the parents aren't, how are these kids going to learn, and how are they going to grow up to be healthy, strong adults? I mean, granted, you have those kids that it's not like I'm saying we're hopeless. We're not, because you have people, you have individuals who have that inner desire to grow and to become greater and more. And that's what's so amazing about, the human spirit. But not everyone has that, or
100%
the power they have inside of them.
Anthony, do you have any thoughts?
No, yeah, I think that Deborah's absolutely right. I think the power has to be restored back into the parents. And I'm very traditionalist. Like my wife and I, we've been together for close to 17 years now.
Awesome,
we were high school sweethearts.
How
graduated.
old are you?
I'm 33.
33. Wow, that's awesome, bro.
So, we got married right out of high school. I joined the military, took her with me, and I've always been able to provide. And I never really felt out of place until I left the military, and I kind of had to struggle to kind of come back and do a whole career change. But I just wasn't happy in the military anymore. I just didn't feel like I was using my full potential. I kind of looked around and I'm like, man, there's no better or no epitome more of socialism in real life than the military, because you're guaranteed everything, including healthcare and everything.
Wow.
But I just wasn't happy. I love serving and I love the men and women I serve with, but I just think that it was just a very flawed system. And when I left in 2017, it was starting to get a little bit more woke. Things you couldn't say that you used to be able to say. No more boys will be boys. No more this, no more that. And so I was just
like speaking out against Marxism.
Right, exactly. And so I was just like, you know what, man, I think I'm done with the military. I think God wants me to go somewhere else. And so since I've left, I've kind of struggled to be able to find my place and where God wants me and be able to provide. But I'm slowly getting my foot back in there. And, my wife is just like, I can't wait to be able to just stay at home with the kids. I think that I'm kind of one of the lucky ones that even though I'm in Los Angeles County, I live in a very conservative area. Most of my neighbors are Republican. I know because I knocked on their doors for a lot of candidates, and I got to see who around me was Republican. I'm like, man, like 90% of my neighborhood is Republican. And so that was great. We elected a Republican congressional candidate. First time we flipped a seat from blue to red since 1998. That happened here in California. That was really good. And then we also have a Republican state assemblywoman that represents us. And then we have a Republican mayor, so on and so forth. And so our little district kind of rejects everything LAUSD. So our schools are actually not even LAUSD. So we've been open before LAUSD even gave us the green light, and we don't really abide by anything LAUSD. You were talking about critical race theory. That's never been brought up. For Black History Month, I was asking my kids, what are they teaching you in school, and the distance learning. I was kind of keeping an ear out for like Black Lives Matter. And so I just kind of asked them mid-month, I'm like, have you guys learned anything about Black Lives Matter? And they're like, no, they haven't mentioned it once. And I'm like, okay, so at least I know that they're good to go. But the goal is, the end goal.
But I think that's a good, like, just the fact that, and I think before this past year, over the last 2 years, parents never even thought about it. Like, it wasn't even on our on anyone's radar. Where now,
Right.
I think parents really have to do their diligence, especially when you get to high school. I mean, middle school and high school, because it's definitely you're seeing that being pushed and pumped. I mean, I saw a video that went viral. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago? There was I don't know, it was a high school student or middle school student, and there was a teacher that was screaming at this student as she had him sitting on the floor, just humiliating him. It's like, you are the problem. You are and he's like, I don't want to wear a mask. Like, I'm just not gonna wear a mask. You're a threat to all of us. Like this, we don't know what's going in our classrooms. And I've heard stories that I'm just like, this is crazy. So the fact that you're asking those questions is something that I think a lot of parents actually need to take note of.
Yeah, I just got to make a quick note of this loser in the comments, Keith Campbell Lisme or whatever, the guy that can't put on his own show, so he has to come on to successful platforms like ours.
He's actually, so Keith is it's funny, Keith lives in LA. He's coming on, he is definitely trolling right now. He's coming on Keith. He's coming on Thursday night with me, Ross the Boss, and Kongman. So he's probably trying to get some ammunition to prepare for his debate on Thursday night.
So the only reason why I say that, is because critical race theory looks different in every place, and in California specifically, there was something passed at the state level. They're going to be touching on stuff like teaching indigenous stuff, teaching things that they specifically said it's going to be anti-Christian and anti-European. I believe it was like indigenous people, Black people, like Latinx people. And they just passed this curriculum to be taught K through 12. And they specifically say that this curriculum in California is going to be anti-European, anti-Christian. And it was interesting to me because usually Latino and Hispanic are kind of intermingled. Hispanics were not included. So if you kind of delve deeper into like Latino versus Hispanic, Hispanics are descendants or people that attribute themselves for descendants of Spaniards.
Yep.
Spaniards to the indigenous Latin people are considered Europeans, white Europeans that brought their white Jesus into this country. So believe it or not, California is not even including Hispanics into that curriculum because we are considered, I identify more as a Hispanic than I do Latino because I have a lot more. I did my DNA test. It turns out I'm 100%. No, but I did do my DNA. And so I went back and it traces back to a lot more European, like Spaniard, Portuguese, stuff like that. And so I consider myself more Hispanic. And it was really interesting to me to see that Hispanic was not even in there because we, as a culture, as a people, we descend from, Europeans, white colonizers, and then we brought a white Jesus over to California and stuff, And so it was really interesting how it's kind of being promoted in these schools. If you're really an ally to like Black Lives Matter and these people that
are all Marxist organizations, I mean, I remember when I went to Black Lives Matter website and like right on the About Me page, their mission, they were pumping Marxist ideology. At the same time, you have her buying, it's just, and that's where it's just, I'm sorry, the left are the most racist people in this country. And you can have the debates and the conversations, but when I see leftist politicians, and a perfect example is AOC. When AOC, after the Chauvin verdict, when she comes out and when she went on her Instagram Live, the first thing she said, she was like, this was not justice. Quote, I know it feels like the system is working for you guys, but I want to let you know this is a complex situation. It is not. And the reason why is because the moment that minorities, Blacks, Hispanics, the moment that they find their justice, they find peace, then they don't need the BS narrative that, oh my gosh, I'm oppressed. I need the government. Because really, I mean, what it is, they really want to replace God with government. Because every Marxist ideology in itself, you always take God out of everything. There's only one party that wants to take God out of schools. There's only one party that wants to take God out of the national anthem. There's only, you see this, it is always coming from leftist politicians. What their end goal is socialism. It just is. In a new name, the new name is democratic socialism.
Or progressivism or wokeism or, we're just here for the indigenous. Somebody commented that, Hispanics took over as people and forced Christianity on them. And I'm just like, look, man, finders keepers,
Finders.
So
that is so crazy.
This is like Malcolm X's quote. Malcolm X's quote about the
white media?
Liberal,
the white liberal, yeah.
Go look up Malcolm X quotes, and he talks about the white liberal is the worst enemy to America and the worst enemy to the Black man. Now, this is direct from Malcolm X. I mean, go look it up. It's a whole speech. Go look
The,
it up.
the the
So.
one thing that I will say is that I know that a lot of times we want to paint a specific people or a specific person of that, especially, you know, if you're Christian or you're Catholic or anywhere in those denominations, that you can just agree that this is just straight up a spiritual war, like some people are mentioning in the comments, and this is just about good versus
Good
evil.
versus evil.
Right.
And the thing is that, you know, people want to say like, oh, that's such a Republican talking point, or oh, you know, that's just a conservative talking point. I'm like, look, man, you either believe in biblical truth or you don't. When you start looking at what Marxism is, it's just one of the many names. It's like legion. It comes in many names, and you start looking at Marxism, you start looking at socialism, progressivism, democratic socialism. One of the things that you will not find in the forefront of any of these names, including Black Lives Matter, is God. You will never, ever find that. It's not one of their main key topics. It's not something they want to promote. It's not something that they push. They don't say we trust in God. They just don't preach those things. And that's something that has been very effective for me. I remember when I went to go Portland, Oregon, when it was getting really, really heated with the DHS agents on there that Trump had sent out. You know, he had sent out federal police officers out there. And what ended up happening was I was able to capture the moment they were burning Bibles. They were grabbing Bibles, tearing out the pages and burning them. And they were out there chanting, you know, F your Jesus. And they would like clap 3 times and stuff. And so I was able to kind of grab that video. Not only did it go viral, like every publication, I mean, Daily Mail published it.
Wow.
RT published it. It just went super viral because for the first time ever, we're able to really, really see what this message is about, what this movement is about. And this is something that, you know, again, being Hispanic myself, being Latino myself, being son of an immigrant, this is something that I push a lot on the Hispanic community. Latino community is like, look, man, is this really our movement? Do we really want to be allies to people that burn our Bibles, that deface our Catholic church, that deface our God, our Christ? Like, I'm not Catholic. But when I see Catholic statues being defaced, saints being defaced, the Virgin Mary defaced, that to me is a message. That message is we have infiltrated and we're coming for you. This to me is just really sad, the fact that just we have these passive Christians, and I think, Deborah, you kind of talked about this when you're going back to school, is that you have parents that unfortunately are not taking any action. Right. And maybe it's just because, you know what, for so long we've had it so nice. We just thought that America was just like, oh, my freedoms and this is that, but just like we're never more than just one lifetime away or one life cycle away from tyranny. Like freedom is nonstop. It never stops. You must always fight for it. And that's the problem. And it's something that I actually, not necessarily in a good way, but I admire from the left, is they won. They took over the election. They won. They own everything. They own academia, Hollywood. They got Nike donating $1 billion to their Marxist organizations, but they're still in the streets. Yeah. They're still angry. Yeah.
They have sold their souls, though. They have sold their souls.
I agree.
And that's the thing. Like, I would never, like, it's not about winning. Like, this is what one of the things that bothers me the most is that whenever you know, these people with the political wars, it's like, you know, we're winning. And it's like, is it about winning? No. Like, aren't we all humanity here? Like, aren't we all one? But that's the thing, is most people don't.
But not necessarily. That's the problem with communism. Is, you know, people always say, if you don't like it here, why don't you just move to a communist country, a socialist country? When you really understand the foundation of Marxism, Marxism is not about taking over one country and having people flood there. It's about spreading. It's a virus. It's a virus. They don't want to move to a socialist country. They don't want to move to a communist country. They want this country to become communist because it's a virus. That's how evil works. It wants to spread
the reason why is because if America falls, the rest of the world falls. In Canada, in Colombia, you're seeing in New Zealand, you're seeing a lot of these countries where they can't leave their homes right now. When I talked to all sick, like, it was such an eye-opening moment when I was having, especially to the interviews from Colombia, like, you don't understand what you have with your Second Amendment. You don't understand. because it is the Second Amendment that is protecting you guys from tyranny. We're not allowed to have guns. That's why only the military and the police can have guns. We can't defend ourselves. When the Guerrilla come, when the FARC come down, they can shoot us and kill us, and we can't do anything. And a lot of people on the left, all they got to do is have one mass shooting, and boom, the Second Amendment is now up for grabs, because everything is always a power grab, and it is really scary.
Just kind of picked up on this, but there's a guy, Luciano for California governor, stating that Christians are not about spreading truth, though. I don't know. Kind of a weird take, a guy that's running for California governor. Saying that Christians are not about truth. Good luck with that Hispanic vote, man, where a lot of us identify as Christians and Catholics. But you know what? The one thing I will say is that I do believe that there has been a lot of Christians that have just been, pacifists, that just, hey, we willingly shut down our churches, but will we open to just go ahead and be a vaccination site? I think I saw that today. I think I reposted it. Somebody said, if your church has been closed during the pandemic but only reopened to mass vaccinate, I think you should find a new church.
100%.
But I will say that some of the fiercest fighters that I have seen out there are Christians. A lot of people that are just Christian patriots, people that just want to see a restoration, that really want to make America great again.
Back then, 20, 30 years ago, we weren't involved in the civic process. We were just going about our lives. And because conservatives, honestly, the meetings are boring. Like, you don't want to have to be able to be that involved, because you just want to focus on building your business, entrepreneurship. You want to be a part of family. You want to be part of your church service. And when you add all these things, plus you're married, you got 9 to 5, your time is full, and you want to focus on family, faith, friends, and your business. And I think we had, especially in the 90s, early 2000s, we were sleeping. I think we were sleeping, honestly, until November 3rd I think it's like, okay, now we're losing our elections. And you saw something switch in the conservative movement, where now rhinos are getting primaried. The Republican Party is now a MAGA Republican Party. But we're seeing boards. You're seeing hundreds of parents show up to these meetings because we're like, finally. Finally. It's probably it took a year, but I think it's the one blessing of Trump losing is it woke us up.
So many things are waking people up. So many things. Like, for example, with the masks on the kids in schools, like, that's been a huge deal amongst the parents, because I think for us here in Pinellas, so many of the parents in my parent advocacy group, initially they thought, when they were keeping their kids in, and we had tons of parents pull their kids out. Once our district made the announcement, we're going to follow these strict guidelines, masks, social distancing, all this nonsense, I pulled my kids out. I actually found a really small private school, Christian, and it's actually health minded. I put my kids there. We actually have, I want to tell you all parents that are in Florida that are listening right now, we have scholarships in this state, many scholarships. We have like 5 different scholarships through stepupforstudents.org, and we have a great it's more parent education choice empowerment in this state, which is what we need, because so many of these schools are not worked for children with disabilities, with developmental issues, with not just even from COVID, but just for so many reasons, So the education system is just so broken, so many ways.
You wrote this. You said, we will not go back to normal. Normal never was. Our pre-corona existence was not normal. Other than we normalized greed. I mean, you saw this coming, almost
immediately.
A year ago.
I saw it immediately. This is wild, okay? And this is only God. This is like a testimony in itself. So
love it.
I was just I was at a birthday party yesterday. One of the parents at my kid's school, and we were talking about how interesting it was that I actually had met her, I think a month before the lockdowns happened, because I went to a mom's coffee for this school that my kids are in now, even though my kids were still in the charter school that, through the public school system. At that point, I had heard about this school a few months before at like a parenting discipline workshop through a church that I had gone to. And that seed was planted then, because she said it was a health-minded school that they had just started like 2 years before. And I said, health-minded school. I said, that's what I need, because they aren't like the school that my kids are in. They're not teaching my kids health, and they're not an extension of my values and what really is most important to us. So I said that was something that stuck with me, and I carried that through, and I followed that them. I followed that little school on social media, and I saw something pop up. There was like a mom's coffee that was going to happen, and I went to the mom's coffee and I talked to some of the other moms about it. And this was right before the shutdown. So then I went over to the school, toured the school, got the packet, held onto the packet for a month, didn't do anything with it. Then the shutdowns happened, and I instantly knew. I called spiritual, and I called bio warfare is what I really thought it was at that, intuitively thought it was.
Well, I mean, you see what Rand Paul's calling out Fauci right now. There's a there's a case for it.
Yep. And I mean, I remember saying it that first week, and I'm like, this is just it's no surprise to me. So I knew. And I've been through a lot of trauma in my life. So I feel like what we've gone through this past year, I was actually built for. And like the mental strength that I've had to develop, it's literally like what we're going through right now, I was created for to, help guide others through. So only through my own difficulties, and this is the power of Jesus Christ right here, is like through my pain, through my difficulty, now I can pass that along and I can help others through it. Right. So to find that freedom, to find, that strength.
Well, and even scripture says, like, train a child in the way they should go, and they will never depart from it. And that's why faith is so important. And that's why God is so important, because when you're raised with a mindset of like, one, trust in God, put your faith in God. It's not about self. It's about looking up first and getting that strength outside of you. And then you take that, find your personal responsibility, because knock and the door will be open. These are the foundation values of our faith. And that is why the left wants God removed, because the moment that we don't have a God to turn to one, look inward first, then what that does is it turns our heads to the government. What can you give me? What can you do for me? And it takes away. That is why communism and Marxism does not work without the removal of God.
So it's so much that to where it's not even just government, though, because you have government teamed up with medical and pharma technocracy, which is right now the team. It's like they had to team up, because now you have all of these people who live mostly godless lives. They're looking for a savior. They're looking for something to save them, but it's not Jesus. It's not God. No. They're looking to the medical industry. They're looking to the government. They're looking to the vaccine to save them. And you see like this cult-like movement happening right now with all of these people who are getting this completely untested, warp speed pharmaceutical intervention that, in the studies, all of the ferrets died when they tried to make a coronavirus vaccine in the past, but we're now doing this on 12-year-old children.
That's insane.
If you want to see the truth about what's going on with these vaccine adverse events and the injuries, go to VAERS. You can check out that information. We actually had in Texas, there was a physician who spoke at the last Senate hearing, and he blew it up. But he talks about how only 1% of vaccine adverse events and injuries are reported. 1%. And we already have over 4,000 deaths reported from this. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And we've shut down other pharmaceutical products in the past for much less than that, but this is still going?
They were asking the doctor about, how, and he was basically explaining how they skipped the animal trials because the animals kept dying from the vaccine, from the jab vaccine. Instagram, don't kill us. Yeah. And I don't think conservatives would be, or the anti-vaxxers or whatever, I don't think we would be nearly as skeptical or what they want to call everything conspiracy if when we post a story about a different narrative of all of these victims, we get blocked, we get deleted, the posts get taken down. Why is big tech colluding with big pharma? And that is what makes kind of even throws more gas to the fire, because you can't post a story of any story that is anti-vax, and if you do, you get deleted, you get banned, you get pushed down.
So here's the deal with that. I just did an experiment. I actually did this a month ago, but I did it again over the weekend just for people to see it and just to spread the awareness. But when you do a story or you do a post that mentions the word vaccine or COVID, you have the censorship banner that pops up at the bottom, right? So with the vaccine specifically, it has a specific banner that'll take you right to the CDC website, and it's just then propaganda that fills you with the false hope to make you believe that everything's okay with the vaccine and there are no issues. But if you post anything with that word, that banner will pop up. However, if you post a story with one of those little gifts that they have in there that says like, I got vaccinated, or let's get vaccinated, and it's one of those little gifts that specifically promotes the vaccine, if you put that into your story, not only do you get a pretty little purple ribbon around your, it
bumps your story up to the front
there, and then you get a little heart on there because it's you're promoting, the vaccine or the jab, but then you don't get a banner, a censorship banner.
Really?
Yeah. That's so twisted to me, because then if you're promoting, it,
then it's okay.
You don't need any censorship, because
exactly.
if you're promoting it, then you've already taken the bait. But if you're, potentially going to be speaking something about vaccines and we don't know what that is, and you could potentially be, telling people to use their brain, their God-given intuition, and they're not.
It baffles me how people just can line up. You got a 99.98%. Someone commented on one of my videos earlier. I can't remember which one. I think I did a video making fun of Rachel Maddow when she was freaking out about, oh my gosh, now that the CDC has put this down, I have to like rewire my brain to like be in civilization, be out in public and not wear a mask, and I'm looking, is he vaccinated? Is like just crippled in fear. It's going to play in the whole division thing. And it's the same voters that are so quick to just like fall like a cult with all of these, everything health-wise. We see the same thing with anti-Semitism, where I saw a picture yesterday, I don't know if this was current, where they were holding a banner, queers for Palestinians. And I'm just like, if you went into the Strip, or you went over to the Gaza Strip and you carried that sign, they would take you up to the top story and throw your ass down. The point of saying that story is that people are not informed. They don't know. They see a headline. They see something about, Dr. Fauci said this, the CD said this. This is what we have to do. And it's the scariest thing because, and I say this study on almost every single Instagram live, because it really drives the point home, that 80%, the study came out last month, 80% of Democratic voters trust the mainstream media. 8% of Republican voters don't trust the mainstream media. And so they have this propaganda machine going so deep that you can literally put any headline. Fauci can come on. That's why the whole Russia collusion BS was so, on the left, it was like Trump colluded with Russia. And then on the right, it's like, no, he didn't. Just like, literally look at the facts. But the party of science is not even the party of science,
and they're denying the science now because they refuse to take off their masks. And so here's the thing: is that they want to, going back to what you were saying, Jordan, where like, oh, they call us conspiracy theorists and this is not, but it's not a conspiracy when we have been saying for so long that it's never been about the science. It's just been about you feeling insecure, and you need the government to reassure you that everything is going to be okay. So you have these whack jobs that are out there pushing their science onto you by force. And then now what's happening? Now you have the president of the United States saying, please do not bully people with a mask. It's their right to continue to wear it even if they're vaccinated. I'm like, but that's not the science though.
What I want to know was where.
So it's almost like I went out running on Saturday morning, and on that trail that I was on, there were so many people with their mask on, and I was just like, and I was just like, maybe what I should do is treat them the way they've been treating us. We should go up to them, record them, and harass them for wearing a mask and denying science. I'm like, you're a science denier. Really? I'm like, you know what? I'm actually going to do the opposite. I'm going to treat them the way I wish I would have been treated for not wanting to cover up every waking second of my life or triple mask in my own car by myself. I'm just going to just leave them alone and just be like, man, you know what? It's your right. If you want a triple mask and wear gloves and wear a visor, you look crazy doing it, but hey, man, whatever it is.
The virtue signaling. You have Biden, all the government, they've been all fully vaccinated for months. They've been rocking double, triple masks. They're pushing this entire thing. And then you have 8 Yankee players this past week, all vaccinated, all get coronavirus. You have Bill Maher, had to cancel his show this entire week, was fully vaccinated back in April, got coronavirus. And it's just like you have a 99.98% chance of survival. When I was talking about this Rachel Maddow thing, this one guy was like, well, that's fine. If you don't want to get vaccinated, then I think we can agree that there should be medical freedom. But that also means that you should not be able to get medical care because you'll be a threat to nurses' health. You should not be able to go into grocery stores. You should not And this is a regular person. This isn't like an activist or like, this is a regular person that literally believes, and they're so brainwashed with propaganda that this virus that has a 0.001% chance of fatality, that if you don't take this, you are literally a threat to humanity, to the point where you are not allowed to get hospital care.
Yeah, and then you have the nurses union that just came out saying that, hey, we go against the CDC. We want our masks back. And I'm just like, dude, what a tell that you have these unions that, you know, Deborah, you exposed the unions, you know, conspiring with CDC saying that this is what we need. I mean, you know, being in Los Angeles, I've known that it was a sham from the beginning, because when UTLA went into session and they were like, what do we need to reopen? They're like, well, we need to defund the police. We need health care for everyone, including illegals, and blah, blah. And I'm just like, what does that have to do with our children again?
Literally.
Like anything. Like, what does that have to do? I've been able to kind of like infiltrate through other people, like these Facebook groups of like UTLA teachers and parents, like they're supposed to be having conversations, and people send me screenshots of these so-called teachers, and they literally inside of their classrooms, like, so they have like the profile ring like around their thing that says proud union teacher, you know, proud UTLA teacher, yada yada. And then in the background in their classroom, they got Karl Marx, they got Che Guevara, they got Fidel Castro flags inside of their classroom. And this is what they're teaching. This is what they teach with. This is what they want the visual to be when people enter these classrooms. And I mean, I've read it all, man. You know, teachers literally going into LAPD pages saying like, oh, cop killers, this and that. And these are union reps. These are union teachers. And I'm just like, man, dude, like this. It almost feels like, again, going back to what I was talking about with Jesse or Kelly Ryan, I think I forget what his name was, but he was talking about like, oh, it's nice to see that people are waking up to the in-your-face communism. Well, the reason why it's so in your face is because they've completely taken over.
They have.
They don't have to fear retaliation anymore. And so patriots are always like, well, what can we do? There's really no fabric. There's really no institution that's truly on our side, because you have like the PragerUs that are always being banned, and they always have to fight back, and they're all caught up in legal matters in the courts. And you know, I went to a Dinesh D'Souza when he was speaking a while back for a candidate, and he said the largest megaphone for Christian conservatives was a church, and they're all closed down right now.
Come on.
And there's no pastors and there's no priests speaking out. Very, very few of them. Very few of them are. And I feel really bad that this is the only real nationwide institution that Christians and conservatives have is our churches, and they're still shut down to today. And across the world, you can see they're being still shut down. Pastors are being arrested. And Christians are just like, well, I guess I'll just wait until a Republican wins in 2024, and we'll just try again. And I'm like, no. You need to be active now. You need to be active now, because 2024 comes around. What makes you think there's even going to be a chance at anything anymore?
Yeah.
And, you know, I have so many people that say like, well, I just don't get involved with politics. Well, you know, I hate politics. Left wing, right wing, they're all the same bird, blah, blah, blah. And
that's the lie. That's the lie.
Right. And so this is the quote that I really, really love by Plato. And it says, one of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. Damn. So if you do not get involved right now, if you don't start running for school boards, if you don't start running for city council, and that's another major problem within the GOP. They think Republican president will win everything. Well, clearly we don't, because under Donald Trump and a Republican Senate, there wasn't much they can do against these Democratic states. So you have to win local elections. This is another problem with California. They're waiting for the Republican governor. They're like, oh, I cannot wait for Caitlyn Jenner to win so that we can just stop being called phobics and bigots and this and that. And finally, everything will be erased. And I'm like, we have a majority state assembly Democrat. School boards are Democrat. Judges, courts, Democrat. I mean, we had 6 judges that ran in 2020 in LA City alone. All 6 of them were Democrats. So that's why it's kind of crazy to me when Republicans think that a Republican governor is just going to change things miraculously, which wake up call, it's not going to happen. But the second point to what's so funny about watching these liberals in my city talk about institutionalized racism, and I'm like, who controls those institutions?
Yep.
Who are these judges? All Democrats. Who are these district attorneys? All Democrats.
Yeah.
Who are these union representatives? All Democrats. Our schools suck. Who are the union reps? Marxist Black Lives Matter activists.
Yep.
So start looking inward, but that's just asking too much of people.
The perfect example to verify and confirm everything you're saying is Ron DeSantis is the governor of Florida. He's the best governor in the country. Then you go to Miami and they still got the mask mandate. Why? Because the mayor is a little commie. It shows you could have the most pro-freedom governor, but if your mayor, your city council, your school board, your lieutenants, you have all of these local representatives, government officials that are not being held accountable, then it doesn't matter even if your governor is Trump, because if you're not pressuring them and you're not showing up like Deborah's doing, you're not showing up like Anthony's doing, you don't show up and actually be a part of the process, they're going to keep getting away with it. And we had a this past Friday night, we had a off the record on Telegram voice chat with 9 different speakers. It was amazing. And we went through this packet that we made a PDF which you can actually get for free if you go to speaktruthwithoutfear.com, put in your email, we'll send it to you. And we made this 3-step process of how to keep your government officials accountable. The first one, you go and find out who these rules are, and we write down the rules, what they do and what they give on this PDF. The second one, you follow them on social media. You stalk them. You comment them on their photos. I don't know if you guys know Wake Up with Linda and Red Pill Babe, 1776, and their whole squad down there. And that's what they started doing. And they've started creating this little system in place where now, you know, they, like a couple of weeks ago, the mayor of Miami was at a party with a bunch of celebrities. Common was there and a bunch of other guys. Who else? Pharrell. And she wasn't rocking a mask indoors at this event. And there were stories, and she was reposting stories. But then the following day, she's at a political event outside at the beach, and she's rocking a mask. And 1,500 people in Miami are all following her, and they're pressuring her. And they started freaking out. And so it's just like, even something as little, you might not be able to show up to every single meeting. You might not be able to run for office, but at the very least that you could do, you follow them on social media. You let them feel that pressure. You let them know you're watching. You make a phone call. Hey, I want to be a part of the civic process. I'm going to be at the Zoom call meeting, and I'm just letting you know, we're going to keep you accountable because we want you to tell the truth. And I think that's all you got to do, and let them know you're watching. You will watch them start changing their policy.
Absolutely, man. And that's what it's all about, man. You have to add the pressure. You know what? You consider yourself whatever wing, if you want to be voting 2022, you know, be active in your community. That's what it really boils down to is you have to be engaged. I tell this to the people all the time. I'm like, dude, you're waiting for 2022. You're waiting for 2024. No one's coming to save you. Nobody. Nobody's coming to save you. There's not going to be a perfect person.
I agree.
Trump, with all the power that he had and influence that he had, couldn't get a lot done. So please stop thinking that, well, I'll just wait 2 years. I'll just wait 4 years. Waiting around, being complacent, just compromising. This is what got us into the problem. And Deborah, you're absolutely right. What you posted a year ago, May 2020, there is no going back to the normal, because the normal was what the problem was. What we had before is what led to where we are now, where we have so many sheep and where you have so many Christians that have replaced faith in Christ with fear of government.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Too many people fear. Too many people are afraid to speak up because they're like, well, I just want to do my 8 to 5. I want to binge my Netflix show for the 3rd time in a row.
Yeah.
I want to eat my little box meal that I microwave for 2 minutes. And then I just want to be left alone.
Yeah.
I just live and let live. I want to be left alone. I want nothing to do with politics. But like Plato says, you end up being governed by your inferiors. You cannot complain. Politics is in every nook and cranny of your life. Yeah. Everything is about politics.
That's,
you know,
we are the change. We are the change. No more looking at anyone else, taking personal responsibility. Deborah, where can people find you? Do you have a website, social media? I mean, obviously we're here on Instagram.
Yeah, I'm here on Instagram mostly. It's XO Deborah DEBRA Williams, and I have a website. It's called mindbodyblend.com. Started working on that a few years ago, just meaning for it to be a health and wellness community. So I will be going in that direction with it. But right now I have silent advocacy teas like this one up, and
love it.
You know, some other good ones. Super Spreader of Love, Light.
I freaking love it.
I'm doing that because I think what happened was I started doing it for myself and some friends and family locally and for our school board meeting stuff. And people started to really catch on and really like the t-shirts because they found even if they struggled with their own voice, right, they could wear a t-shirt. And what this was doing was actually planting many seeds where they would have conversations that they didn't have otherwise and connect with people that they may not have connected with otherwise. So it's kind of a cool thing. What you said is so powerful, Anthony. It's so true because we cannot wait for other people to be brave for us. We cannot look to politicians, to, you know, leaders in our community to do the work for us. We have to be the ones. I know at one of our last meetings, there was a woman who was up we had a microphone and she was doing a speech, and I walked into it and I heard her screaming at the top of her lungs, like, Trump is still president. And I honestly, you know, the reason I was upset with that was because we were there at a school board meeting and we were there for the purpose of the kids. And she's screaming Trump is president, but that's irrelevant at this time and place.
100.
Okay. Completely irrelevant. This is the time for you to take action.
Come on.
This is not the time for you to look to politicians to do your work for you. This is a call to every man and woman out there who's sitting on their couch, who's scrolling through social media all day long, who's sitting back afraid to do the work. Do the work.
That's it. Preach.
Be the change you want to see in the world. Absolutely.
Exactly. Anthony, social media, website, what you got?
No website, just social media. Everything is at Inform with Anthony. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. On my YouTube, Inform with Anthony, for any Spanish speakers out there, or if you want to send my Spanish conservative podcast over to people, I go live there noon Pacific Standard Time, Tuesdays and Thursdays, hitting people with the truth there.
Love it.
And then, of course, here on my social media, Inform with Anthony.